Aloha! I am Jason Schwartz, your host here at the Neutral Zone, MauiNeutralZone.com. We are on KAKU 88.5 FM, the voice of Maui. You can also see us on Akaku, Maui Community Media. We used to say TV, but media, because we're also on the web. And we have MauiNeutralZone.com, where you can see this show and all of our shows. And of course, everything lives on YouTube, so you can always go searching. Today, I brought the King and the Queen. They're laughing because they know it's true. I really meant the Kings and the Queens County. These guys are from New York. I found two beautiful people here in Maui, David and Samara Balfour. Aloha, welcome to the show.
Aloha.
Aloha.
I hate to correct my host, but I have to.
Good.
I can honestly claim, since I was born in Brooklyn in 1938, and I was whisked away during my infancy to the Bronx. The Bronx is mainly where I'm from. Because that was my growing up period. But my missus has her own story. She's, as she likes to say, she's a New Yorker as a result of hooking up with me.
Where are you from, my dear?
I was born in Winona, Minnesota. I don't relate at all.
Winona, like I might have known from Arizona, same spelling?
The song, Route 66.
W-I-N-O-N-A.
Okay.
Winona.
Because
It
we
was
know there's
cold. Ooh.
Wyona, is it Wyona? Winona, Judd.
Winona.
And then there's Winona in Arizona, which is...
And there's Winona Ryder.
Yeah, there we go. How did you... Oh, Minnesota, you know, I think of Minnesota...
Cold.
I know. I have a cousin
40
who's
below zero.
up there now, and I asked him, why are you there? He loves it. He loves
If
it.
you love
But
the cold,
it's too cold for me.
If you love the cold and went to 40 below zero, freezing my hands and feet, walking to school 2 miles,
Oh my goodness.
terrible. I left when I was 9.
Oh, with the family or alone?
By train, but my family.
She wasn't a runaway, no.
That's right. You know,
At
just
age
checking
9,
in.
at age 9, she was packed up. And
She was packed up and on the road, Route 66. She was out there on the
Moved to another place called Yakima, Washington.
Was that any warmer?
It was warmer, but it was hard because it's a small town and people, you know how people can be in the small town.
Like Maui, it's a small town. People are that way here.
This
Now we're
is
getting
much. I was
more and
20,000 people.
Well, I just remember when I got here, it was 1988. You guys probably a little after that.
No, I came in 59
To Maui?
to Oahu.
Well, here on Maui, I moved here in 1988. And I don't think there were 20,000 people, but it was much smaller than it is
Yeah.
now.
Oh, yeah. I
And
came
it was
from
a
Maui.
small town feeling. Like when you say, I think of Yakima, Washington, maybe because my map, the way I look at it, the name will show up these days when the town is big enough to hit the map. So Yakima was one of the bigger ones.
It's on the map now.
Yeah, it's
Apple pickers. I was an apple picker, cherry picker,
Oh,
all
Apple.
of that.
It's an agricultural hub, and they have lots of migrant workers and a lot of
The work is seasonal.
farm
I got
workers
ya.
who reside there. So that her growing up and her sister, she's one of 9. And she was actually, she worked in fields earning some extra money, as did her sisters. I guess your
You
brother.
sound like her agent.
Well,
You tell me. I'm just saying, she's right here. Let's see what she...
We had
You-
to work as we come from a poor family, and we worked in the fields.
And you were out in the field and you found him? No.
No, found him on Oahu in '74 when I was still living there.
So, this king was in Oahu. How'd you get to Oahu, King?
I had
A charter.
I was a teacher, then an assistant principal, and as a bachelor, I like to travel. So I took a sabbatical leave and I traveled around the world for 6 months. And one of the last stops I made was in Japan when I got a call from my brother who said he wanted for an interview to be an assistant principal by a former colleague of mine. He said, I said, but I got a few more stops to make, including Hawaii. He said, you better get your butt back here in New York for this interview. You can go back, some later year.
Well,
So I touched down ever so briefly in I guess, Oahu, en route back to New York for my interview. As it turned out, I didn't get that job. But a few years later, I actually took a charter flight. In those days, they offered charter flights during your Christmas vacation. I was a teacher. They were relatively reasonably priced, and I could afford it. So I came to Oahu. I had one of those packages, the flight, a hotel room, a lay greeting, things like that. And before I came, I had a friend that I had met on that sabbatical trip. I met her in Fiji, and we traveled together, and we became old-fashioned pen pals. We corresponded longhand, regularly. Both of us liked that. And when she had relocated to Oahu, and when I was going to go to Oahu, I wrote to her. And she said, give me a call when you arrive. And when I arrived, I gave her a call. And she said, are you traveling by yourself? And I said, no, I'm traveling with a friend. So she said, why don't you and your friend come over for brunch tomorrow? She gave me the address. And she said, I'll invite my friend. And she said, my friend just broke up with a guy I don't like, so I want her to meet somebody that I like. So that's how I met Samara.
wow, how fun.
I didn't want to go.
Christmas vacation, 1974, the end of 74. So we were introduced, and it didn't quite take off right away. But
It was not love at first sight.
no, not for either of us. But I like to tell this because it actually took place. I wanted to see the famous Chinatown in Honolulu.
Yeah.
So we went to this famous Chinese restaurant whose name I can't remember right.
Wolf Fat, I believe.
Wolfat, okay. And when we left the restaurant, we were strolling through the streets, and we started to cross the street, and being a New Yorker, being aware of traffic, I saw this car, and I got concerned, so I instinctively grabbed Samara's hand to basically pull her along with me so we get out of the way of the car. And much to my surprise and delight, there truly was some electricity, some chemistry, some spark that happened. I looked at this woman a little differently because I could actually feel something in my body. I was attracted to her. And the rest of that vacation was spent getting to know her a lot better. And by the end of that trip, she had taken me, she had done S. Do you remember Earhart Seminars training?
Sure.
She said she had done it, and she wanted me to meet her. There was some kind of a, what was that, at the Ilokai?
Yeah.
There was some kind of a function. And so we went to the Ilokai, and she introduced me. The one I was more impressed with than anybody else was so free. She introduced me to Bill Dana. You remember Bill Dana?
Sure.
Jose Jimenez, right?
That's right.
He lived here on Maui too, I believe.
He lived in Hana. Oh, yeah.
Samara, he wrote a song about you, didn't he?
Yeah, this is, I'm going to Maui to marry Samara unless I get lucky tonight.
So yeah, I was impressed.
You got lucky.
Yeah, funny.
And the long and short of that story, by the way, is that when I left,
You jumped to charter.
yes, in other words, I was smitten. I was very much attracted to Samara, and I wanted to find out, is this a vacation romance? So the test would be in New York City, where
Pull it back.
I taught at a ghetto school, and it was quite strenuous. It was
In
quite
Brooklyn or
challenging.
Lower Manhattan?
No, I taught in Harlem.
Okay.
By that time, I had moved. I lived on Central Park, and I was like a mile away from my school. I could actually walk to my school.
Wow. You know, my father was the manager of the W.T. Grant Company at 125th Street in Broadway. It was his first
How about I
I
remember?
grew up there.
I
I
remember
didn't
the
know
store.
the difference between black and white. It was never in my consciousness.
I know.
It's like amazing, isn't it? How life is.
What year? What year?
Or Jew and Gentile, the same thing.
Well, he was. When I was a kid, it was in the mid '50s. But then in the I graduated college in high school, 1969. So in 1968, with the convertible top down, my senior project was taking photos. So we were driving through Harlem, taking pictures. That now you'd figure they'd be coming and killing us. But we felt had no fear. I was out there documenting what now I understand was quite a scene. I knew it then, but it was, you lived there. Pretty
Not that
close.
far away. I have to tell you, one night you mentioning that story. George Carlin, grew up in
Sure.
the neighborhood too. But I lived and I still do have an apartment on 100th Street. So the school I taught at was on 129th. So it's 20 blocks is a mile. So it was about approximately a mile from 100th Street to 129th. Actually, a mile and a half.
A little bit more.
Yeah, mile and a half. Sorry, mile and a half. But the story I was going to tell you is one night during my bachelor days, I came home late at night and I'm looking around for a parking space. And this is New York, not Maui. And I find a parking space several blocks away from where I live. And I pull into the parking space and I see there's some young men in the neighborhood. And late at night, this does not look good. And anyway, they start to move closer to me as I'm getting out of my car and making sure that everything is locked up, making sure that there's nothing valuable visible. And that was the period when they would break into cars and take your car radio. So as they approached me, I heard one of them say, "Oh, forget about it. It's Mr. Balfour. Don't bother." So it was a former student of mine who recognized. I don't know if he was planning on some mayhem, but he recognized me.
Does sound like.
He told the other guys, "Back off. I already know this guy. He's our teacher." So anyway,
I didn't know
Isn't
that
it amazing?
yeah.
New York. I love New York.
Yeah.
Do you still go back?
I haven't been off this island in, God, decade and a half.
Well,
Wow.
I can't.
And haven't been to New York for longer.
It's changed as much.
When I left New York, it was 1973. There was no World Trade Center up yet, so I didn't even see the World Trade Center. How's that? Missed it. But now there's something new there. But
Yeah, which we did go there. We went there with Fred and Lisa.
my father managed W.T. Grant Company, so it was in New York, New Jersey area.
I remember the W.T. Grant. It was like rivals with Woolworths, right?
Right. Yeah.
Not too many people
It's
remember
much more
W.T. Grant.
gentrified now.
It was They were nationwide, weren't they?
They ended up going bigger and bigger and bigger, and then their president overextended their credit, and they went upside down in 1972. Why do I know? Because my father suddenly started a little shop afterwards. He was used to running a big company. To suddenly have a little shop, it was a funny thing having a card and gift shop in Roslyn, New York. You know Roslyn?
Yes, Long Island. Sure. And
So that's where I grew up. And went to Stony Brook on the island.
Who knew? I didn't even know you were a New Yorker.
Oh, Brooklyn. Born in Brooklyn.
You too.
New Caledonian Hospital. I was their first baby in some kind of baby society in 1951. That's my claim to fame.
And I was born at Brooklyn Presbyterian in 1938, prior to World War II.
Well, how come with two Jewish kids, one born at New Caledonian Hospital, the other one born at Presbyterian?
That's what they had. That's what they had.
Right?
You
Very
have a
funny.
choice when you're born.
Now it's Mount Sinai. Everywhere there's a Mount Sinai.
Yeah.
We wonder, where is the real Mount Sinai? Please stand up.
We live close. Everything is like a conglomerate these days. Even hospitals buy up other hospitals. they merged.
Yeah.
We live literally across Central Park from Mount Sinai. So when I had hip replacement surgery, it was easy for Samara to walk across the park and visit me. Yeah, so I've been to Mount Sinai as a patient.
That's right. Moses was there. He was doing had a couple of stones, put them up to the light.
Very good.
So, what did you teach when you were teaching school?
My license was in social studies. So when I actually needed a few credits in order to get my diploma. So I went back to my alma mater, the City College of New York, which is part of the City University.
CCNY.
Yeah, went to a very prestigious school. A lot of good people went there. So when I graduated, I got those extra credits, and one of my professors said, why don't you try? I actually qualified to teach. So he suggested I try the school, which is adjacent to the campus. And I spent my entire career at this school, as well as my younger brother also taught at the school.
Wow.
So it became my closest friends or colleagues. It was really a remarkable experience to work. The principal was
The name of the school was?
the Adam Clayton Powell Jr. High School. Junior High School 43. Schools in New York on numbers.
Yeah.
It was
PS 43.
PS 43. Well, it was Junior High School 43.
Adam Clayton Powell. Was he the name on it when you started?
Yes.
Wow.
And the story there was, apparently they wanted to name the school after the great black singer. He was a very controversial figure. He was a former All-American football player. Oh, God.
All right.
Oh, Joseph? No.
And they found
Not
out.
Billy Eckstein or Arthur Price.
No. Those are the singers. This guy had a deep baritone voice. He was very political. In fact, there was a very
We'll certainly
famous
forget, huh?
right-wing
It's not funny
protest.
how like
Oh,
this.
It'll come to me before the
Yeah,
end
of
of
course.
this. But as it turned out, the PTA wanted to name the school after this individual. He was also that made movies, records. But they found out you can only name schools in New York posthumously. They found that he was still alive.
Oh.
In fact, he had spent a lot of time living in the Soviet Union. Paul Robeson, there it is. Paul Robeson. I may be 83, but the synapses are still working.
Now, you see, I only knew Paul Robeson as an actor. I didn't know, see, that's because I was just a
He was an All-American football player. He was an incredible actor. And you got to hear him sing Old Man River or anything he sang.
Mm-hmm.
But he was politically active. And he was fearless because, again, he was a big man. He was very courageous. And during a period when segregation was very much happening in the United States, more than in vogue, it was the apartheid that black people lived through. So Paul
Isn't that funny? It's really, to me, I think it's funny, strange. I grew up in New York, and because I was around black, I never thought about it at all, until I was in high school when there was only one black girl in the school, the daughter of Arthur Price, the singer. And I was that was the first time I ever really understood about race problems, because that never came up. Well, in your school, Adam Clayton Powell, what's the junior? I didn't get that what you said.
Yeah, his name was Adam Clayton Powell. The congressman's name was Adam
I
Clayton
remember.
Powell Jr. And it was a junior high school, so there were two
Oh, I
juniors.
got-
Adam Clayton Powell Junior High School.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, it's just the way it was. But then it could have been the Paul Robeson Junior High School if he had passed away.
But he had passed away.
So they named it the Adam Clayton Powell. It was actually named originally when I got there after the community, which was Manhattanville. It's the west side of New York, just below where City College is.
Wow.
City College is 135th.
So you spent your whole career there. Wow.
Except for 1 year. I was an assistant principal at a school in Far Rockaway, and I commuted. I drove my car daily out there, and I was more than happy to go back to my school. It was just convenient. I was familiar with the faculty. I was familiar with the principal. They wanted me back. It was easy for me. That was, and remember the year. It was the year that they were holding impeachment hearings. Was it against Nixon?
I remember him.
Remember the people? Our senator from Daniel Inouye was on that panel. Remember that?
That's what made him big and famous at the time. He was running that whole deal.
Did very well. Yeah, they kind of exposed what was going on at that time. But of course, small peanuts compared
Small
to what's
potatoes compared to
what's right.
more
You got to
recent
think
things.
bigger and dirtier and meaner. Right. It's all about chasing the almighty buck. I mean, there's so much for everybody. I hate to get on the soapbox.
No, please. That's what we are. This is
Okay.
so fun.
It's my fervent belief. If you want to get an equal playing field, it starts with education. You have to make quality education available to all our children in this country. In essence, what we're saying
Amen.
is the future, these are going to be adults. Create healthy environments so that they can grow and learn. I'm also a fervent believer that everybody has skills. Not everybody is going to be a brain surgeon. Not everybody is going to be a nuclear physicist. But, you know, we all have something to contribute to society, right? And you realize that even more as a senior citizen. You know, I've been put out to pasture, so to speak. But my faculty's work, I know that we volunteer at the Maui Arts and Cultural Center. We have a background in running. We were serious long-distance runners.
Did that happen when you were seniors or way back when?
No, but in New York. I used to play a city game, which you may remember. Handball.
Oh, loved him.
And then I graduated to playing paddleball, which was a lot faster. So I was playing paddleball when one of my colleagues said, my son is going to be running in a race in Central Park. I said, I'm going to go watch him run. Maybe you'd like to come out and watch also. So I went out to watch the race. And I thought the race would be filled with these Greyhound, high school and college students, you know, ran like the wind. But the race wasn't. It was filled with there was some of these dynamite fast runners. And then there were various age groups. And I saw one of my colleagues, who I didn't think was, again, I hate to be judgmental, but when I looked at him, I didn't think he was much of an athlete. And I saw he finished the race too. So I said, Peter, what are you doing here? He said, well, you know, I've been running for a long time. I said, I didn't know. He says, yeah. He said, I'd run the Boston Marathon a couple of times. So I said, you know what, I gotta try this. I think this is something I can do. And I signed up for a 5-mile race the following week. And I said, I'm going to start slow because I don't want to embarrass myself. And I ran the 5 miles, and I ran with some people who apparently the crowds knew that I was getting cheered for as well. And the one thing I learned about running was I could see after I realized I could do it because I held back. But I could see the finish line. I said, you know what? I want to see what do I have in reserve in my energy tank. And I stepped on the accelerator, and maybe the first 4.5 or 4.75 miles warmed me up because I really could kick into a sprint. And I began to reel people and I began to pass them. And I had such an uplifting feeling when I crossed the finish line. I said, I like this. And that began my passion for running.
And you ran with a mind for if you're, I wouldn't say coasting, that's never a coast for me, but you had reserved energy so you could sprint at the end. What an exciting
I always felt, and I would share this with anyone who watches who has any kind of interest in running. It's one of the few times in my life where I could give 100%. I gave everything I could, and it never surprised. And the missus also did very well. I could reach back and just give it all that I could. And when I crossed the finish line, I was gasping, I was out of breath, and I actually fainted or passed out after a few of my races at the finish line.
because you were totally spent.
Gave it all. I wanted to feel spent, and it was such a good feeling. I don't have to beat anyone, but I know that I gave 100%, not for 26.2 miles, because I can't run that hard during a marathon. But I have about 85 marathons to my credit, and ultra marathons. So I've run over 100 miles on 2 occasions. So I learned after a while that I have determination, I have stick-to-itiveness, I have perseverance, and that's a good attribute to have if you're a long-distance runner. So I realized I could run long distance. That when you run 5 miles 1 week, and then you run 10 Ks next week, which is 6.2 miles, and then you run a 10-mile race, then you realize incrementally you can go more and more. The question is, how do you feel about it? Maybe it's the fact that I'm comfortable teaching the same lesson 4 times a day to 4 different classes, doing it for 30 plus years, 32 years, so that what I liked about running is I didn't need anybody else. It's not a team sport. I could put on a pair of running shoes and go out and do it wherever I was. And also it's a form of transportation. I can't tell you how many times I put a backpack on my back and run to visit friends, because I show up a little sweaty, but...
That's wonderful. I never could get through that original wall. I don't know, maybe I didn't have a good coach, right? Because I always thought, how do you keep running, you know? How do you run so much?
You chat with other people, and you find people that may have the same body shape that you have, same age, and you find out everybody has their own challenges. How do they go about it? And you modify it and you adapt for your own personal use. And that's what took place when it came to the running.
I hated it when I first started, but I didn't want to be a running widow.
Oh, so you wanted to drop at the same time?
So I wanted to...
We're going to run too.
After I built up, I went for my first 5-mile race in Central Park. I still remember. The next was a 10K race out at West Point. So I began to discover, you know what? I liked running in race. It didn't cost that much at a time. You got a T-shirt. You showed up at the
visit nice places.
Very nice places, and they would shower you with the
right, nice
food and drink after the race. It was a lot of fun, and sometimes we go places and spend the night at a hotel. Third race, Samara and I were already hooked up together. For the third race, I said, let's go to Washington, D.C. They've got a cherry blossom classic. So we went to Washington. I'd never run 10 miles. It was the third race I ran.
Wow.
And she wished me well at the starting line.
Didn't I run it also?
No, a year later, I got her into running. And we ran, we fast forward, we go back to Washington, D.C. We're both running in a marathon. It's the Marine Corps Classic, the Marine Corps.
We bumped heads, didn't we?
No, we bumped heads at the start of the 10-mile race. Yeah. You're wishing me well. I remember we bopped our heads.
Literally bumped heads.
Yes. I bent down to tie my shoelace and I collided at 2 heads. So I remember that was before the 10-miler. A few years later, we were running the Marine Corps marathon. It was, I think, in early October or early November. It was the end of October, early November. And we both entered in it, and we're running the race. And I usually started out faster than Samara, but I ran into trouble that race, and I found myself walking during certain stretches of the race. You can't. So it wasn't a great day. And the next thing I know is Samara passes me. I said, sweetheart, you keep going. I'm just going to catch my breath and I'll catch up. And then I caught up to her, and normally I would have tried to pass her. And she said, aren't you going to run faster? I said, we're getting married in 2 weeks. If we're going to go through life together, we might as well finish this race together. So we finished that Marine Corps marathon holding hands, crossing the finish line.
Yeah, that was October then, yeah.
Right, so here we are.
Married
How many years later?
40 plus, close to 45, because we met in 74.
So you guys have been married for 45 years?
We did what you and Harry have done. We lived together for 3 years, and then she popped the question. No, I'm serious. She said, that's what she said to me.
You're exaggerating.
Well, but you basically put it to me. You said, listen, I know what I want for my future, and marriage is in my plans. You have to tell me now so I can make plans. So she put it to me, and I have to make a decision. So the big issue, you're bringing up some really fascinating stuff. The big hurdle was not so much getting married, which was something I was 38.
Mm-hmm.
You were 40 at the time. We were in
I said I didn't want to get married until I was at least 40.
Yeah, I hadn't come close, and of course, I'd been with a number of women, but marriage was a terrifying thing. Spend the rest of your life with one person, you know. My parents had a marriage in which, when they got angry with one another, they really
Socked it to him.
they hitting below the belt.
I understand.
I wouldn't let that happen. I said if we had an argument, we had to clear it up before we went to bed.
Yes, so
We never go to bed angry.
yeah, that's one of the things she brought to the table.
Good one.
But on this, the story I wanted to tell you is, we were getting married, and I decided, I'm going to marry Samara. I came to that conclusion. Now I needed to see my mother, who was a widow. So I go to see my mother, and the conversation went something like this: Ma, I want to let you know that I'm going to marry Samara. So she said, so you told me, what do you want from me? So I said,
She didn't like me because I wasn't Jewish.
Well,
so I said to
she
her,
grew to love you, I know.
Pardon?
She grew to love you.
I think so.
Well, how could she not?
so
Well, if you're not Jewish and, you want your...
I only hear that. All I know is I'm Jewish, and I married someone that was not Jewish. My brother married someone who was not Jewish twice. I've been with someone that I think it doesn't matter.
I don't think it matters
We're the
either.
generation,
I don't
the
like
new
to-
generation, all that prejudice stuff. If you want to hang on to that old custom, that's fine.
I don't like
It's-
division. That's the old paradigm. Let's create a new paradigm. We're all one,
That's right. I think I imagine you can't imagine, but we've been speaking almost an hour?
no,
Seemed like an hour.
Really?
Well, we're almost to, let me just look here. Yeah, it's unbelievable, isn't it? See how time just races?
right, and I didn't even finish the story.
So you're going to finish it?
Yeah, I see that. I sometimes, we ultimately, my missus introduced me to spirituality. I grew up on this bar mitzvah. My mother had Passover at the house. We were not religious, but we observed Jewish customs, and my mother kept a kosher house. I knew my mother. My mother was born in Poland, and for her to live through the war and see that members of her family didn't survive,
Sure.
Painful.
I knew that this could be an issue, which is why I told Samara I want to go see my mother alone. So I went to see her, and she said, well, you're telling me, what is there for me to say? So I said, Ma, I'd like to have your blessing. I'd like to get your approval. And she said to me, I want you to be happy. So I stayed with that. So I wasn't trying to outsmart my mother, but I said, Mom, are you to decide what makes me happy, or can I decide what makes me? Do you want to pick my wife? She said, no, I don't want to pick your wife. So I said, for 3 years now, if your objection is that Samara isn't Jewish, and that would affect the raising of our children, let me put your mind at ease. Samara's had a hysterectomy, and we're not going to have any children, so that's not going to be an issue. I said, since Samara came into my life, am I any less Jewish now than I've been previously? She said, no. I said, am I happy? She said, yes. She said, I talked to my mother. Normally, I would get impulsive and angry with her. I didn't have patience with my mother. But on that day, I was very patient with her. And by the time we left, my mother was in our camp. Now, my younger brother married his high school sweetheart. There were a lot of issues. He got divorced. He got divorced from his second wife, etc. But Samara and I have been steadfast. Now, we've had our ups and downs and our issues. It's not that that's not the point.
Life.
I won't mention her age, but we're in our 80s.
I'm 85.
She mentioned it. We're not the same people we met. This is my partner in life. I like. The other thing I want you and the listeners to know is we normally come to Maui seasonally. We're here in winter and summer. Spring and fall, we live in New York. I still have an apartment in Manhattan. Been there 52 years. Rent stabilized, so it's a good deal. It doesn't break the bank.
We pay less for rent in New York than we do for maintenance here.
In our complex.
My God.
Yeah. I was going to say, the reason we have the point I wanted to make is, as a result of the pandemic, we came here Thanksgiving of 2019. We would have gone back at the end of March a year ago. But the pandemic happened, and as a consequence, and of course the epicenter was New York City. So we thought it was not in our best interest to go back to New York, and so we've remained, and we postponed our trip thinking we'd go back after Labor Day, but we didn't think that was in our best interest either. And so we continue to be here now. We've been here 16, 17.
Second paradise, as you say, as you would
Oh,
say.
yeah, well, I always think like a teacher. Come back from a vacation, write a composition or an essay on what you did during the summer. What did you do during the pandemic? I was stuck in paradise. I was stuck in Maui. So, and what's happened, this is one of those, use a word if you want, a mitzvah, a blessing, an unexpected blessing. We've been here for a full year now, and it's clear this is where we want to live full time. So we got some insight, some
I've
clarity.
always wanted to be here full time, and you've finally come to that.
Yeah, she's an island girl, because I met her on Oahu.
And I see, you know, my old buddy here, Ramdas.
The best.
Oh, yeah.
The best.
And Wayne Dyer.
Oh, yeah.
Wayne Dyer.
Picture of my,
And
show you-
Muji.
I want to show your
Do you know
audience.
Muji?
Yeah.
Love Muji.
Wow.
This senior citizen was once younger. She said
This
it.
is a picture
Of Samara.
of you
Of course, in
as
the
a
fig-
young babe at what, 35?
No, I was
45.
40.
Look young.
It was been 86.
1985 USA 100 mile. 100.
She said it.
You were the
actually-
winner. You won that one, huh?
And she said, well, how old were you at the time? She said an age group record, which was in the record books. In fact, she was,
It was smashed after 6 months.
but she
But
ran.
still, that's a wonderful
You see
accomplishment.
the time, 18 hours.
And I had diarrhea for the first 2 hours on this 1 mile track.
Then you take a break and run?
You can do whatever you like. You go to the bathroom, you sit down, eat, drink, whatever you like. Get a massage. 18 hours, 23 minutes, 54 seconds. And we both finished, except she waited 3 hours for me to finish. So we've been going through life together.
He's proud of that.
Yeah, I am proud of that.
And you should be proud of that.
Yeah. So if you know what effort goes into running, because you indicated that you didn't have
And I hated it in the beginning.
you didn't have, I'm going to say,
Let me see this.
a love for running.
Who, me or her?
No,
She did.
for running.
Here she is.
She worked hard.
Champion.
She worked hard at it.
Yeah.
And when you're a runner, you know the challenges you face. A lot of it is in your body and in your mind. It's always you. And so I knew the kind of mental makeup that she had. She introduced me. She's my spiritual mentor. So you mentioned Ram Dass. I had a sabbatical. I had taken a sabbatical as a bachelor. Now I got a full year sabbatical. And we traveled around the world together. And she said, you can plan the trip. I want to go to only one place. She said, I want to go to India. I said, I've been to India. You got 1 billion people. Most of them want to get out. You know, the quality of life there is, they're on a poverty level there.
But I said, I'll run my ass all over, but I want 1 month in India with Osho, or Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh. And he was saying 2 weeks would be plenty for me. But once we got there, it was like Disneyland and the Ganges for him. And he wanted to stay. I was ready to leave. For me, it was agony and ecstasy. Because people said, you guys are married, what are you doing here?
Yeah,
I had no idea. To me, it was all spirit for me. And that's what I went for him and the lectures. And then I did some workshops also. But
she introduced me to Est. So I started with Est. And then when we traveled on this round the world sabbatical, and we paused at Pune, India, I'll humor her. She doesn't know what it's like being in. But the ashram was an absolutely fascinating place. And I was, you know, I remember I went for an intake interview and they said to me, what kind of background do you have? I said, I graduated from university, a master's degree, taken all these graduate courses. I've taught for 14 years.
I had nothing.
So, and I've taken Est. So the woman who's interviewing me says, "Oh, we're going to start you in nursery school."
You were in kindergarten.
No background at all for spiritual growth. So I started with the Enlightenment Intensive, and then I took as many of these classes as I could, and I felt. You moved to California. The Esalen Institute had these, what was it called?
Encounter groups.
I took an encounter group, knocked the socks off of me, knocked the arrogance out of me. God, it was really incredible. So it was really a period of growth. As I said, I always liked to correspond. So I wrote letters to my brother. I wrote letters to some of my colleagues and friends. And they told me when I returned that there was
A noticeable difference.
the tone of and the content of the writing indicated to them that I was experiencing some kind of life-altering experience. So I don't know if I'm the most around it. But, you know, there's a spiritual side that was definitely awakened and stoked by being there. And big thing that you do You ask questions.
Didn't Osho reel you in by his jokes?
What she's referring to is I was keeping a journal of this trip around the world. And so when we went into the ashram in Pune, you have to go through what we see now. Had a metal detector, and apparently Osho was supposed to have an allergy to people who wore aftershave lotion or a perfume. So they had, I swear to you, people who were sniffers check out to see if you, and they would let you in, but they move you in the back where, you know, you wouldn't cause him to have some kind of a reaction, an allergic reaction. So, and so, so yeah.
I know this may sound hard to do, but these guys want to go home. I don't think that they want. You are at home. You are at home.
Time to go to the bathroom.
I hope that you've enjoyed this time. I've enjoyed spending time with you guys, and I don't know what you were thinking this show would be, but I know that I love you, and I feel this incredible power and passion from you all the time. And when I think of Maui and its future, I think about water is important, and what's important is people like you guys. Very much I've appreciated your spirit, always positive, and really part of, you see me, I've been out there talking all these years, but, you know, you guys
We're in the same camp, by the way. We're environmentalists, and we believe in the Star Trek admonition. Right?
May the forest be with you.
No.
Well, that's the Schwartz. That's the Schwartz be with you.
No.
That was Mel Brooks.
May the shores be with you.
No, the Star Trek says.
May Muji be with you.
No.
Live long and prosper.
The prime directive, which I forget.
From Star Trek.
Yeah, the prime directive.
On mission. That one?
Is to leave the world
Live long and prosper.
a better place than you find it. And I'm feeling that at this point, fortunate that I may be, I would like, in my own way, to contribute to the transformation that's going on here in Maui. Wouldn't it be great on this small island if we had no gasoline-powered automobiles? Wouldn't it be wonderful if we used, you could see it on our hills over here, the wind turbines, if we had wind and solar for the whole island.
What's going to take is a financing tool. Mm-hmm. Like when we think about no cars, those cars...
Electric cars. I didn't say no cars.
No, but I mean, everything, it's always money.
Yeah.
Just to replace
Follow
vehicles
the money.
for so many people would be prohibitive. So they'll go out over time. And we now know that electric cars are also going to be kaput because of, you see what happens with what it does to the environment. But there are things on the horizon that we all know that are extraordinary. Things in our lifetime, we have seen such change.
Last 100 years, amazing.
Jason.
And now it's time to save the world.
I remember when we had an ice box. Do you remember when the subways were 5 cents? When telephones were 5 cents?
Postage stamps were
3 cents.
I'm just on the edge of that. Can you imagine when the postage stamps are 55 and it's still not enough?
Yeah.
What was it? Gasoline? How much was gasoline?
Yesterday I filled up at
25
Costco.
cents a gallon, something like that.
I remember
I paid
$33.19.
$3.19 at Costco.
I know. Now it's $3.19. It kind of, by the time you see this, it might be higher.
Fill up
Yeah.
before they raise the
The
prices.
salaries haven't gone up.
No, they're not
And the
commensurate.
quality of food and the way we've destroyed our land and all the
Yeah.
rest of
They
that.
wouldn't say yes to $15 an hour. How can you support yourself and a family $15 an hour?
Never mind that. That's what they're trying to make it.
Yes.
People are making way less than that.
I know.
And somehow someone justifies that. It's crazy.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think this comes from education. We really need to get a sense of caring for our neighbors. You
And
know,
we need to wake up. If everyone thought about waking up and wake up to who they really are, life would be beautiful. Just remember who you are. Who are you? Who are you?
I am a beautiful and compassionate being, here and now.
And I've learned to say I'm a child of God. So whatever the creative process has manifested our being here to, so the evolution of the human race has brought us right here and now. And we try to take what we've learned, how we've evolved, make this a better place for future generations. That's our
And
mandate.
pass it on. That's what
That's
we're
our
doing
mandate.
here. We're a library for the
We are
people
love.
that see and hear
So are
and
you.
use what they see as an example.
Yeah,
That's what happens.
I agree. But I think it stems from getting a feeling that you're not alone, that you're part of a community, and the community embraces differences.
How can you when there is no separation? We've created the separation where there really is none, and we've created all these friggin' labels that we don't need.
See that? These guys get it. You young people get it. It's that group in the middle. It's the people, I was going to say my age. We don't want to let this world down. You know, it's almost like we had our eyes over our hands and we're doing and enjoying. Now it's time to kind of not leave until we fix this deal.
You made this world. You made this world. We didn't create it. We made it. And it's all, each makes their own world. And
Isn't that the biblical story of Adam and Eve? They lived in the Garden of Eden, so it was a paradise, and we found it as a paradise. I think we need to restore that, and that's within our.
it's already there. It's just uncovering all the other shit that we put upon it. And if we can uncover that, you know, then you're back to your pristine purity. Because you created all that. If you didn't create that.
These guys are terrific. I know you guys out there are saying, we want to come and see more of David and Samara. Well, come on over to Maui.
Come to Maui. We love Maui.
Thank you guys out there for joining us. Thank you guys, David and Samara Balfour, for spending this hour with me.
And thank you,
It was
Stu.
really a pleasure.
Thank
Hey,
you,
we
Jason.
want everybody to know that we had the masks on, and then we're observing
Okay.
the social distancing and what's required. Jason, you're going to be eligible for your vaccination shortly, are you not?
I am eligible.
Are you going to take it?
Someday, if push comes to shove. In my opinion, I am not taking it because I don't really feel that it's important for me to take it. I haven't taken vaccines for many years and I've been healthy. My immune system is strong. I'm very aware of health. I know about the body. And, quote, I'm staying socially distant. My partner is also older than me, and I'm 70. So I'm waiting. And again, with everyone else taking it and us being on an island, and knowing that to even get on this island, you got to do. So if we stay distant, and they're checking people on the way in, at some point, we're going to be free of this burden. And until then, and if after all there's more and it's important for me to take it, I would consider taking it.
Yeah,
But I'm not rushing it.
I was in no hurry to take it, and it just sort of fell into her lap
Laps.
for the first shot. So it's like, want to take it now? And I was like,
They came and made it very easy for us where I live, in a senior place.
yeah.
But I didn't.
Yeah.
You know, it really, I think
I'm not afraid.
Yeah, well, I think it's important for us to be aware.
Yeah.
But you guys also aware of what you eat. You're very conscious of being in good
We're
health.
still active. Seriously, we have had this lifelong passion to be active. And so,
And may God willing, none of us have any challenge from this, nor anyone we know.
amen. Amen.
We are so blessed to be here on Maui through this.
Oh, I agree.
But you know what? We need to be proactive. You know, we can thank God that we're blessed. and we need to take care of others to see that this crippling, pandemic does,
Goodbye.
moves out.
Move on down the road.
Exactly. Right.
Aloha.
Thank you guys for joining us.
Aloha.
Thank you.
Be well.
Aloha.
Stay safe.